Hello and welcome to the State Draft. I am Purva Chitnis, special correspondent with ThePrint. Have you heard of these villages? Bhaze, Zui, Dasgao, Kodvide? I'm sure not. But these are the villages which were part of Maharashtra but are now wiped off from its map. Similarly, Malin, Taliye, and now Irshalwadi. These are also some of the villages which received similar fate. Now, during monsoon, we hear that for days together there's heavy rainfall and downpour in different parts of the country. But for some, one dark night and their lives are changed forever. Loud noise, and then along with it, the rolling mud and rocks takes away everything that comes in its way. So, be it the trees or the villages or people living inside those villages or even the animals are washed away in a landslide. Last week in Irshalwadi, a small tribal village in Maharashtra's Raigad district, landslide occurred, wiping off the entire village off the map of Maharashtra. That village consisted of 228 people, and 27 people were declared dead, and 57 were declared missing before the search operations were called off. The rest were lucky enough to survive. But whenever such incidences happen, government declare compensation. They try to rehabilitate those who survive, and also after years, the rehabilitation gets completed. Those people are then relocated to somewhere else. Then experts are called, committees are formed. But what happens to those committees? What are the lessons learned after many such landslide incidents that happen during every monsoon? Why are these landslide incidences occurring? What are the different types of landslide incidences? We will discuss all of this in this episode. Now, Irshalwadi incident is not first of its kind. In fact, since 1980s, Maharashtra's Raigad, Konkan, Pune districts have witnessed major landslides in many years. In 1989, a landslide in Bhaze village in Malin Taluka killed 38 people. In 2005, 197 people were killed in Zui, Dasgao, Kodvide, and Rohan villages in Raigad's Mahad Taluka. Then, 9 years later, in 2014, Pune's Ambegao Taluka's Malin village got buried under a landslide, killing 151 people. Then, just 7 years later, in 2021, 89 people lost their lives to a landslide in Taliye village, again in Mahad Taluka in Raigad district. 2 years later, the Irshalwadi incident came. Now, if we observe these major landslide events closely, we will see certain similarities in all these events. They occurred in the month of July, the wettest monsoon month for Maharashtra. Not just that, in fact, the frequency of these landslide tragedies have increased in the last 1 decade. Experts say that this is due to climate change, but also there are certain similarities in major events like Malin and Taliye, especially because they happened in the dead of night and people could not escape because they were fast asleep. If we discuss Taliye and compare it with Irshalwadi, then both these villages did not feature as landslide prone villages in the list of government. The government comes out with a list of landslide prone villages before monsoon in order to prepare those villages. And in that list, Taliye as well as Irshalwadi did not feature in the government's list. Now, experts say that landslides are of two types, naturally occurring and because of human intervention. We'll first talk about the naturally occurring landslide. What they say is that for a landslide to occur, it doesn't happen overnight. There is a pattern, there are signs that need to be followed. So, before any major landslide event, in that particular area, it rains for 4 to 5 days and the rainfall accumulation is over 600 millimeters. That means there has to be continuous rainfall and heavy downpour, and the rainfall accumulation has to be over 600 millimeter. And on the last day, what needs to be seen is that the rainfall accumulation is over 200 millimeters, which happen in the cases of Malin, Taliye, Bhaje, Irshalwadi, and all these landslide events that we earlier talked about. Now, what happens because of this continuous rainfall is that because of this continuous downpour, the saturation level on the mountains is eroded and the soil is loosened, and that's how the mud takes away everything, the rock and anything and everything that comes on its way, including trees, villages, everything is uh, everything that comes in its way is then washed away and wiped off. This is how naturally landslide occurs. Now there's another part to it. There's something called as human intervention. So, what are human interventions? Experts have pointed out to activities like deforestation, encroachment on ecologically sensitive zone, certain developmental work which is carried out by government, mining activities, or even increased human settlements in certain areas have led to increased human intervention in certain parts of the Western Ghats. And because of this and lack of government accountability, along with climate change, all this have increased the frequency of landslides in Western Ghats. Now, before we move on to solutions, let us first understand what are these Western Ghats. Now, these Western Ghats, which are also known as Sahyadris, they run from north to south, passing through 6 states: Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, and ending at the southern tip of India. There are two types of rocks mainly found on these mountains: basalt and limestone. According to geological evidences, there are certain areas of these mountains which are especially landslide prone. And this is found especially in the Konkan side of it. The Konkan and the Raigad side of Maharashtra is very much prone to landslide. It is because of heavy monsoon over the years and weathering, the thinner outer layer of these mountain rocks have crushed into soil. There's a deep layer of soil that has accumulated over the years because of the rains. There's vegetation which is grown in this soil and on the top of these mountains. What has happened is because of human intervention, if there is removal of this vegetation, because of heavy rain, what has happened, as we've mentioned earlier, the mud and the soil comes down, it starts flowing and it takes away and wipes off everything that comes in its way because of this deep layer of soil which is found on these mountains. So, what are the possible solutions? After 2005 landslide, the government had formed a committee under eminent ecologist Madhav Gadgil. Madhav Gadgil had submitted its extensive report after research in 2011. That report had a number of suggestions and recommendations. One of the major recommendations was that there needs to be three ecologically sensitive zones across these 6 states where no construction, no human intervention is permitted in those ecologically sensitive zones. And precisely one of the major reasons why the suggestions of Madhav Gadgil report are not yet implemented. Another major suggestion of Madhav Gadgil report was that there needs to be increased people's participation. This is also one of the possible solutions that Dr. Satish Tegre, who is the former HOD of Pune University, told ThePrint, that there needs to be increased participation of local people and local authorities. The Madhav Gadgil report says that there has to be a bottom up approach rather than a top down approach. What the experts also tell us that along with just going into those villages and making a list of certain villages which are landslide prone and also evacuating people from those villages, instead of going into those villages one by one, there has to be some technology through which you can identify the certain signs of a landslide, which we already have discussed. And based on those signs, there needs to be certain evacuation method. And if at all, there is rain or there is no rain, even in those cases, if at all a village is landslide prone, the technique needs to be there in place, a technology needs to be there in place, so that just like cyclone event and how we evacuate people during an event of a cyclone, certain villages need to be evacuated for a certain period, for a certain number of days during the monsoon months. The experts have said that there are certain solutions which are there, but every time there is a landslide event which happen, the committees are formed, our government asks these experts for possible solution, but everything remains on paper. And then the next year another landslide event happened and number of lives are lost. There are certain solutions that the government needs to also look after. The Madhav Gadgil report of 2011, the extensive report is there in place, and this was also discussed in Maharashtra Assembly after the Irshalwadi incident. The opposition has even questioned the government as to why these villages were not declared as landslide prone. In fact, in case of the government's defense, these villages, they did not feature in the landslide prone areas, but because of the continuous rain on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of July, there was heavy rain, and the rainfall accumulation exceeded a certain amount that we already discussed in the start of the video. Because of that, the landslide event happened. But when there are possible solutions, the question is, why is the government not acting before and always ready to act only after an event happens? Only after a tragedy happens and many, many, many lives are lost. It happened in 2011, it happened in 2014 in Malin, it happened in 2021 in Taliye, and now in 2023 in Irshalwadi. So the question is, when will government act first and not later? That's all we have for you in this episode of the State Draft. Thank you for tuning in, and please do keep watching in for more such videos.